Hi, Kat. It's so exciting. I don't know what time it is over there. It must be sort of early morning for
It
you.
is. It's what time is it? Yeah, it's almost lunchtime
Oh,
here.
okay. So we're not
Um
doing too
yeah,
badly.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm really delighted to introduce the viewers and my audience from Fizz and Tell to the wonderful Kat Cantrill. And I
Oh,
met
thank
Kat.
you.
Oh, crumbs. About 4 or 5 months ago, it must have been.
Hmm.
Here in the
Hmm.
UK, Kat came over for a conference that we were organizing, and I just loved her energy. And I said to her, I want you to come on my podcast, and I want you to come on mine. And it was kind of love at first sight. But the reason I'm
It
bringing
was.
Kat in here now is Kat's story to love, her journey to love is really beautiful. It's really inspirational. And I hope anybody who is at this stage in their life looking for love again can take something very
Yes.
special from what we're going to talk about today. So, Kat, over to you to just introduce yourself.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so I'm a matchmaker and dating coach and image consultant. I'm based here in the Midwest in the United States. And I have always been in the people business. So, as long as I can remember, it's always been one of those just natural tendencies to help and to assist people. And I found this, I fell into this industry because of my relationship with my husband. And in my previous business, I was a confidence coach. I was helping women find themselves again. I was on the journey of really helping women find their spark. And in that type of coaching, what ended up happening is these women would, at the time, he was my boyfriend, and uh women would come to me and they would be like, wait, where can I get one of those? Like, help me find one of those. And at the time I was like, I don't have the time and energy to devote to this. I'm here to help you with these parts of your life. And it was because of my relationship with him that eventually I listened and leaned in and basically help women and men find love, the love that I have with my husband. Because let me tell you, it was quite the journey to find him.
It was, it
It just,
was.
it
And
was, yes.
I'd love to do a deep dive into that if that's okay, because tell
Yeah.
everybody how old you are now, Kat.
So I'm almost 50. I'll be 50 in 4 months. So yes, I am 49 years old. And yeah, with 50 right around the corner, which is it's so hard to believe. It is so hard to believe.
I know it was a tough
Yeah.
one for me with 50 and having 50 during COVID and lockdown. I couldn't see anyone, and people
Oh
were
my gosh.
outside the door sort of singing to me and throwing presents through the door. It was really
Oh my
hideous but
gosh.
wonderful at the same time. Um,
Yeah,
but you only just got married, didn't you? I
I
saw you
did.
on your honeymoon and I met your lovely
Yes.
husband as well. He had dinner with us, which was so
Yes.
lovely. But, you know, tell us your journey to getting here, because it hasn't always
Yeah.
been an easy one, has it?
No, it hasn't. So I did kind of what some Gen Xers did, which is marry right out of college. So my home life wasn't the greatest, and found some being able to escape from that by getting married right out of college. So went to college, met my ex-husband, and I was 19 years old and he was 23. Very different, ex-military, kind of there was something about him that he wasn't like the typical other guys in college. And I, at the time, almost, when I look back on it, hindsight is 2020, but looking back on it, I knew that I was in a position that I never wanted to go back home again. And I wanted to be able to spread my wings, and and so a way that I did that was to get married right out of college. And so got married right out of college, like graduated in May, got married in September.
Wow. So how
So
old were
22
you?
years old.
22.
I was
Mm,
22, just turned
mm,
22 actually.
mm.
And my ex-husband was from the Midwest. I'm originally from the Southwest. And so moved to the Midwest with him and started to build a family. Had two children and was a stay-at-home mom during that period of time, and realized very quickly after the birth of my son. And looking back on it, I mean, I'm sure everyone can say this too, where it's like, oh, there were all these warning signs. But when you're so young and you just, and back then we didn't openly talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
the the turmoils of a relationship, because
And it was
even
almost
then,
taboo. It was taboo to talk about stuff
yes,
like that. It
yes,
really was. It was, people didn't want to hear it. They just didn't want to know.
no, they didn't. And it was the whole men will be men
Yeah.
and boys will be boys. And this is just kind of the way it is.
And
And
you
this is the
shut up and
life that
put
you,
up.
that's right. Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so in being a stay-at-home mom and not from, I didn't have any family that was around me. So I really was isolated and was really battling with high depression and anxiety. And my ex-husband now, I mean, he was very verbally abusive, alcoholic. But again, then it was men go to the bars. My job was to stay at home, to be that kind of that 1950s housewife where I took care of the kids. And I even remember getting in arguments with my ex-mother-in-law, and she told me, she goes, well, maybe he would come home if you would just put the kids to bed before he got home. Then maybe he might come home earlier. Like, this was the mentality of what
It's
I
so
was wrapped
draconian.
myself into.
It really
Yes.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was getting to a point where my kids were getting older and the marriage was just getting worse. And I knew that I needed to get out at some point, but it was because of the abuse. It was scary. It was, again, there weren't resources back then. You didn't openly talk about it necessarily. But I knew I needed to get out. And so I tried. I made the mistake of going to a divorce attorney, and I left the business card somewhere, and my ex-husband found it. And then he promised me the moon and the stars that everything would change, that he would sober up, that, he wanted to save the marriage. And because it got to a point where I wouldn't see him for 4 days. Like,
Mm.
I was at home raising the kids, and I had gotten a part-time job. So I was a substitute teacher at the kids' school, and then I was taking care of my kids at night. And I remember if he wasn't home by 7, then he wasn't gonna be home until 2 a.m. That was the relationship. So I asked for the divorce basically, and he promised me that he would change. And at the time, it was the big recession here in the United States. So it was around '06, like
Mm.
'06, '07, when things were really bad. So he had lost his job, and we had moved out here to where I'm at now. And I thought, great, new beginnings, right?
Yeah.
It's just like when
Yeah.
people are like, we're going to move to a new state and start all over. We're going to have a baby and it's going to be great. You think to yourself that these major life
Yeah.
events
The same
are
crap comes
going
with
to
you.
solve your problems. That's right.
Those bags of crap are still strapped to your back. Well, that rhymes.
Yes, it does rhyme. Yes, that's exactly right. And so I moved here to where I'm at now, and he had sobered up, but things just got worse, where he substitute going to AA instead of going to the bar. So I still was never seeing him. My kids were now in school full time. So I was now working a full-time corporate job. So now I was doing everything. I was working, I was taking care of the home, I was all of the things and taking care of the children. And I just got to the point in my life where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I just am exhausted.
Mhm.
And
Something's got to
I'm
give,
in,
hasn't it? I remember feeling
yeah,
there's got to be another way. There's got to be something better out there, life-wise. Even if I spend the rest of my life on my own, it's going to be better than what I'm dealing with right now. So I hear that so loudly and clearly, and we hear that from people. So, and it's that point, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's that point of you've either got to save yourself
that's right.
or or face the consequences, really. And you don't, and those consequences are very scary.
They are. And one of the things that kept me in that relationship was fear. And he owned a lot of firearms, and there was a lot of fear that was involved with that. And I remember back then, I couldn't really, it got to a point where I felt that I was kind of losing my mind. I was having to journal my thoughts because
Yeah.
every time that I would bring something to the table to discuss him, he would end up turning the whole conversation around. And then I would be the end up one
Yeah.
apologizing. And I remember going to a therapist and she's like, "Have you ever heard of the word narcissist?" I'm like, "No." So it's the first time that someone said, "I think that this is your situation. I want you to read this book." And it
Mm.
was all about, I
What
can't
book
remember
did
the
you
title of
get?
it. I
Mm.
don't remember, but
Okay.
um it was a book about being married to a narcissist. And it was the first time in so long that I felt seen in that way where I'm like, I'm not losing my mind.
I know.
Like this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
this is a thing. Like this is not, because for a long time you think it's your character, there's something wrong with you, you didn't do something right, or you're doing something wrong, and you are completely gaslighted to the point of not even knowing what ends up and what's truth and what isn't true,
Yeah.
what isn't real. And so it was
But you're
because
second
that
guessing
therapist
everything
honestly
in your
saved
life.
my life. Yes, yes,
You're totally second guessing everything in your life. I know. And you don't know it's this warped sense of reality that you can't quite believe that you're in it, but you can't see your way out of it at the same time.
right, that's right.
It's I remember it well. Yeah.
And it was scary because, like, when you
Mm,
have children,
yeah.
I remember looking at my daughter, because my daughter was 5 at the time, and thinking to myself, because my mom was married 4 times.
Wow.
And so my mom was married 4 times, my dad was married 3, and I had witnessed both my parents in and out of relationships multiple times. And I remember looking at my daughter and thinking to myself, I much rather be alone and go through the turmoil of raising 2 children by myself than to have my daughter look at this relationship and say to herself, this is the kind of man, that I want in my life.
Well, this is
Um,
okay. This is what they model relationships
that's
on.
right.
We all model
That's right.
relationships and what is right for what's a good, healthy relationship on what we see and what we know rather than what the reality is. It's something that but I've said it time and time again. We're never taught what a healthy relationship is.
No, we're not. I say the same thing where it's
Yeah.
when we leave our parents' home, 2 things are assumed. The first thing is that we know how to manage money. And the second is that we know how to attract healthy relationships,
Well,
and
you're
we
either
know how to
broke
date.
or you've got money, or you're either red or black with money.
That's right.
And
That's
the
right.
relationships are even worse. They're constantly in deficit.
Right. 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 But yet they are the 2 parts of our
Yep.
lives that we are so afraid to ask for help on. But yet that they are the 2 most important things that make this whole world go round. And why are we so afraid to ask for help in these areas of our lives? And especially if we've never been taught, because none of us have.
No,
Even if
none
you
of
come
us.
from the most healthy home, there's still some residue that's there that you
Well,
have
that's a
to
different
address.
pressure, isn't it? Because then you've got a
It
pressure
is,
to
exactly.
create, the Brady Bunch or the Waltons.
Right.
So it's one of those things that I think you can't win one way or another
Right.
with relationships. What you've got to understand, and this is where I work with clients, and I know you do the same, is teaching clients what's healthy for them, what's right for you, and what bits of
Right.
relationships have you seen, have you witnessed that resonate with you that you want to create for yourself that will make you happy. Because maybe what your parents had, if they were loved up and all over each other, isn't right for you. And parents that have split up or are arguing constantly, and there were battles in the house that you witnessed, that's not going to be right either. But it's what you know and what your comfort zone is. And this is what happens is you normalize something, and then you often take that as that this is your benchmark of normality, go into a relationship and use the same benchmark. And I think this is something that's so common for those of us who've been in abusive relationships, is that cycle does carry on and continue, and it's breaking that cycle. And we're older and we're talking about it now. We are having these conversations. It's not put up and shut up anymore. And I think that's
Right.
something
Right.
this is one of the reasons I want to do these podcasts. I want to hopefully those who are putting up and shutting up, give them the strength and courage to seek help and get the right support and realize that there's something better. And hearing stories like yours and like mine and like other people where we have been able to move on. Because moving on after narcissism is the hardest relationship to move on from, because you've got to reset your
Oh, yeah.
parameters back to zero and re-understand and re-educate yourself as to how important you are, and you have a voice again and a say in what type of relationship you want, and then looking for that and finding it. So how does your story end? How did you get to this wonderful place
Yeah.
for you?
So it was quite the journey. And
Did you do
so I
work?
was
Did you
able
go to
to,
therapy as well?
went to
Yeah.
therapy. I also, I'm one of those people that really learns from experience. So I can be taught things, but until I live it, that's when it really kind of really sinks in for myself. And so when I had only been with one man my whole life, I met him when I was 19, and now I found myself 32, single mom, raising two kids, in a community that I was not raised in. So not a lot of family and friends around. And, knew that, immediately I thought the solution was, well, I just need to get back out there and start dating again, which, um, was not the solution. It was, I mean, you know what though? I learned so much very quickly,
Yeah,
and
it's baptism by fire, isn't it?
it was, and that's when online dating was still, it wasn't an app yet. It was,
Mm.
still all desktop. And so I was online dating via desktop, and I, had met a man who was the complete opposite of what my ex-husband was.
So
I
you
was
did
like,
the
"Oh,
seesaw, like most of us do. We do completely the
yes,
seesaw. Let's go for the complete opposite.
that's right." And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's so engaged with his kids, and he's this great guy." And I, dated him for a year. And, in that year, it was, I mean, obviously, when I look back on it, he was avoidant and I was anxious. It was that typical loop, at that point, because
Sure.
to what you said,
Yeah, yeah.
the residue from my marriage
Mm.
was drastic. Like, having to figure that all of that out, for myself, because my ex-husband had I had become such an anxious person
Yeah,
because of the drinking, because of the constant walking on eggshells. It was embedded in me, and so I
yeah,
carried that into that next relationship. But then that relationship even proved me even more that it was, made a poor choice, because that relationship, that's a whole nother story, but he had told me that he had brain cancer in order to break up with me. And that was a whole, which he did not have brain cancer. He was just dating other women, but he couldn't just break up with me. He had to come up with this extreme elaborate lie of
yeah,
why to
yeah,
break up with me.
yeah.
So after that, that's when I was really like, all right, I'm done. And I was getting pressure from my mom. Again, she was married 4 times. She kept saying, "You're not getting any younger. You need to find a positive role model for your children. You need to get out there. You're too picky." I mean, hearing this in my ears. and I just refused to listen. And so I went on this journey of serious rediscovery. Because one of the things about online dating is that when you go online, it asks for your hobbies and interests. Well, what are those? Because I had been with my ex-husband since I was 19. I was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
I was very much underneath his thumb. I was a married woman. My place was in the home. There were no extracurricular
Mm.
activities that I could get involved with. So, I went on this journey of loving myself again. And I know it sounds
Who
so
am I?
cliche.
No, but it's
That's
so
right.
true. It's this who am I and who do I, it's who am I and who do I want to be?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I really started, finding myself through fashion, finding myself through great friends and connection, finding myself through experimenting with new classes and new things. And one of my biggest passions was dancing. I was a dancer. And so I decided at the age of 39 as a single mom who had a full time corporate job, to open up my own dance studio for women only. And so it was this women's empowerment. I was like, I'm a single woman. I got this. I'm going to teach women what I did for myself, where I was like,
Yeah.
there had to be other women out there who were just like me, who
Mm.
thought that the solution was in a man when really the solution is within yourself. And
Yeah.
so giving them a safe place to do that, to explore and to move their bodies and to feel good about themselves. And so I created so much romance in my own life. It was
Mm.
hard, don't get me wrong, because I was working two jobs. I was raising two teenagers at the time. It was not easy. But because of this romance, and I was like, this is what I love. And, I
Mm.
created this whole life for myself, that I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? Now's the time where I'm ready to put myself out there and to find someone. And I joined Plenty of Fish out of all the dating websites. Created this whole profile of my life and me doing all of these different things because I was so proud of who I was and what I became.
I love that, Kat. I
And
love that.
in that first week, I stumbled upon my now husband's dating profile. And I was like, this isn't typical. He wasn't like the typical type of man that I would have said yes to, but I had changed and I was like, I'm going to start leaning in to those profiles that make me curious. And
Yes.
he had two pictures on his profile that I was like, I need to know more about this. Not
Mm.
he doesn't look like this or he doesn't have these
Yeah.
particular interests. I didn't nitpick it. I was like, this is a curious human being. Like I'm who loves life. I love life. He looks like he loves life. We could probably have a great conversation. And so we connected and then we started emailing each other. And he was nothing like I ever experienced before. And at the time, I really didn't believe in romance. But
Mm.
since I had brought so much romance to myself, I was more open to the possibilities of romance. And um, that first date was it changed everything for me, that very, very first date. And I know that usually it's uncommon. I know that my first date with my now husband is uncommon, but um he he was in a very unusual circumstance. He had just left his wife. He was married for a long time. He was going through a divorce, which that was already on my list. Not talking to any man who's going through a divorce. Like I had all of these things.
Isn't it,
And
isn't
then
it
here's
funny that that list goes completely out of the window? Mine just went out the window. I thought, oh, do you know what? What the hell?
Well, yeah, because there was something about him
Yeah.
that I was so curious about, and it was worth exploring, and he was showing up, and I could tell that he was there because he really wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And that first date was my last first date. And so we started this journey together and yeah, and then we were together for 8 years before he proposed because he never wanted to get married again and I respected that. So
Yeah.
instead of me putting my own agenda, being like, well, I must be married again, I was like, you know what? How important is it to me to be married
Yeah.
again? I already had my children. He has his son. Do we need to? And so to me, that was a compromise. It wasn't a sacrifice, it was a compromise. But then I started in this work, and I think he was like, I think maybe we should get married. I was like, what? So then he proposed to me. So I did a live dating game show here, where I was matching couples on stage, and it was super fun. And at the end of the game show, in front of 500 people, he proposed. So it
Wow.
was the
That's
most, yeah,
one proposal. That's one. Hey
that's
guys,
right.
this is how it's done.
That's right.
I love that. And I love that. And you know what? What I love about you two is there's something very special that there's this connection that you see. And
Hmm.
he's, as you said, I remember one of the first things you said, I married someone that was totally different than my list. And that's how you and I started talking about, yeah, I'm with someone completely different than my list. And I remember Terry Orbuck telling me, you know, why have you got such a stupid list? I said, but there's only three or
I
four things
know.
on there. It's only three or four things. But the three or four things were sabotaging me because I was focusing on that list rather than looking at the person and looking. And it was the same
Mm,
thing. It's that curiosity and finding someone who's as curious as you, or if you've got something that's really important for you, it's homing in on what is the one thing that's really important rather than a list of 20 things. So
yes.
with your list, I know people, you and I hear it all the time. They want education, they want
Oh,
relationship
yes.
status, they want height, they want job, what someone's doing, ages of children, location, all of those things. So what did you actually focus on that got you out of the zone, as I call it, because we are in this stupid little zone, aren't we, when we're dating, that took you out of that zone and into a healthy relationship?
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head, is to understand what's truly important. And so for me, the first thing was the curiosity piece, where I was like, okay, this is put education, I mean, even looks, like the type of,
Yeah.
relationships, previous relationships, children, because I had that list where I was like, and that he at the time, his son was 6 years old. I was like, oh my gosh, because I was like, I'm not dating a man who's going through a divorce. I'm not dating a man with small children. And here he was, a man who was going through a divorce with a 6 year old. And I was like, and so
You have to
there's
be careful
something
what
to
you
be,
manifest, Kat.
I know. That's so true. That's so
Everything
true.
you say you don't want,
Um,
you get given.
that's right.
Your
That's
energy's
right.
going there. If you
And
focus on it constantly, it's what you get.
that's so, you're absolutely, absolutely right. And for me, when I met him, I knew that what I was doing in the past wasn't working. And one of the things for me was that I had built this incredible life for myself. And I wanted someone who also had the same viewpoint on life
Yeah.
and love, and wanted, because I'm a creator. I was a dancer. I'm a natural performer. So there are some qualities about myself that a lot of men would say is too much. And I used to get that a lot. Oh, you are too high energy. Oh, you are too much. Or you are too this and too that. And there was a period of time of my life where I was like, maybe I need to change those parts of me. And the thing is that you don't have to change the parts of you, but you do have to change what you're looking for.
It's your
And
outlook, isn't it? Because
that's right.
people tell
That's
me all
right.
the time, I don't want to change. I'm not changing for anyone. I say, you don't need to change.
No,
You need
no,
to do is you need to realign your values and your outlook. You don't need to
that's right.
change. That's all you need to do is just focus in on what is genuinely and authentically important rather than all this superficial shit that the media and everyone else tells us is so today, and how people need to be dating today, and become an A type woman, these type A women who are the most single women that we've got around the world in every country.
I know.
It's
Yeah.
sad. It's sad.
Yeah. And I would say that, there were parts of me that was an A type person. Because I feel like sometimes women you have to be in order to
Yeah.
survive. But
Yeah. You step into that
I
zone. You do step
you
into
do.
that zone. Yeah.
But the thing about my husband was, I decided to put all of that aside because of a couple of things. First is that I could tell his zest for life and his love for life was something I had never seen before. And there was something that was, sorry, I'm getting choked up. Sorry.
Oh, Kat. It's such a journey you've been on. It's such a powerful journey. And this is real. This is real life.
Yeah. And
You okay?
so there was, yes, thank you. There was that piece.
This isn't
There
edited, guys. So
also,
anyone watching this, you can see this is totally uncut and not edited. We all the emotions, all it's raw and it's real. And this is what life and love and hormones.
and hormones. That's right. Oh my
I'm
gosh.
gonna blame
Yes.
it on the hormones, honey. I'm gonna blame it on.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Um, so it was his zest for life, and it was when I anchor it, when I think back to that first date, I was seen for the first time for me
Yeah.
as a person. He was soft and kind and empathetic and was just there for me. And he could see me. And the thing about him that I could never find in anyone else was that he was like, oh, you know, the feeling I got from him on that first date is he was like, oh, I, he was like, the reason why I was attracted to your profile was because of similar reasons where he was like, oh, they still make them like this. Like, that's what he says about my dating profile. He was like, they make these women out here. I didn't even know that. Um,
No, I
because
came from the other side of the country.
yes. Well, so did he. He
Yeah.
did too, because he had
Ah,
moved here for his ex from Texas. And so we have some similarities there,
yeah.
but um it was how he made me feel. Like I felt seen. And he's like, I know that, because would tell him, things like where I was told I was too much. And he was like, no, I want more of that. Like, I don't want you dimming your light. Like, I want to see more of that. And so to give, for
You needed no
myself to be
encouragement, Kat.
open. No, yeah. And so, um, it was, I let go of my agenda. You
Mm,
have to let go of your agenda. You have got to go into that date with an open mind. And I remember I went in kind of guns and blazing that day. There was some stuff going on and I wasn't in the greatest headspace, but I was so curious about him and so excited just to meet him as an individual. I wasn't like, oh, hopefully he's the one. It was like, no, this
yeah,
guy looks really cool.
yeah,
Like I want to get to know him, this
yeah.
really cool guy. Um, and so just initially for me to be open to someone who was like that, who could show me that kind of love and appreciation and compassion, in a very friendly way on that first date, that was, that changed everything for me.
But isn't that just so beautiful? And what I'm hearing just shining through is you were both really authentic and real
Yes.
with each other. And this is where people go so wrong, is they think that they have to be a certain way or they have to do things or they have to stick to their list. They go into this with such a business brain and a business head
Right.
rather
Right.
than heart-centered. This is love. This isn't a job. This isn't a career. This isn't a vocation. This is about two souls coming together. It's about emotions. It's not about a tick list or someone's CV or resume. This is about who this person authentically is and how you make them feel and how they make you feel. That is it. That's all it should be about. And we get in our
Yes.
own way when it comes to dating. You got in your own way. I got in my own way. Hey, heck, we
Hmm.
made enough mistakes between us. But what we did is we opened our hearts and minds when the right person was presented to us.
Yeah. And I think part of it was too. I mean, I got a divorce when I was 32 and I didn't meet him
Mm.
until I was 40.
Yeah.
So,
There's a hell of a
I
journey to go through, isn't there? There really is a journey.
yeah. And I think there's something that happens when you turn 40 where you're just like, some women, I mean, I'm sure you see it in your work as much as I do, where it seems like the older they get, the longer their list gets. And when it's like you try to reverse engineer that, where you're like, okay, what's really important at
Yeah.
the end of the day? And, and I think that's what I ended up doing when I was 40, where I was like, what is really important to me?
Mm, mm.
Um, is this whatever height, profession, education, all those things that that we think are so valuable at the end of the day, it's how is he going to say good morning to me? It's the way that he says good morning to me in the morning. When he brings my coffee to me in bed, when I'm having a bad day and I come home and he's like, tell me the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
And someone who really
is,
wants to hear it.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's the
Um,
difference.
when you focus on the things that matter, does it matter his height and his education and all those things?
Is that
Not
going to make
really.
them a good person and make them right for you? No.
Right.
Does it matter
Right.
how much money someone's got in their bank account or what car they drive? No.
No,
That can change. It's fluid. Those things change. Cars come and go, jobs come and go. We know that. And
that's right.
people get so stuck on that. What's the biggest thing that you tell your clients to be mindful of when they're in this space of wanting to find an authentic relationship?
Empathy,
Yeah,
empathy and mutual appreciation. So those two core pieces I feel is the foundation of my successful relationship with my husband.
I love that.
We have this tradition in our house where this is going to sound so cheesy, but we have a
Oh, please
tradition.
excuse my dog in the background who's snoring away and running around. If anyone can
Oh
see
no.
him or hear him, I apologize for the dog that wants to join in this conversation and he's snuffling away
Oh,
in the corner.
oh.
There is a dog. It's not just my imagination. He's up there.
Oh my gosh, he's so cute.
Oh,
Um, we have a tradition when we're gone all day that whoever comes into the home, so my kids are adults, so sometimes they come and visit. We still have, his son is 16, and so we have joint custody. But every time that someone walks into our house, we greet them with a round of applause. Just to
is
be
it one of
like,
those where you go round that way?
it could be this, or it's just like it'll be funny. Like I can hear my husband like all because I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I go work out and I'm back home at like 7:30 in the morning and I can tell that he's still in bed because as soon as I walk into the house I can hear this like applause like off into the distance. But that's just showing each other appreciation. Like, great, you've made it home. I love it the fact that you're here.
It's
And
adorable.
in dating, people are so caught in their own heads
Yeah,
and
yeah,
me, and my needs and my wants. And is this person going to fulfill what
yeah,
I want? And
yeah,
I feel like I'm like, okay, there's two people that are a part of this equation. This person that you're going on a date with has had their own journey, has had their own trauma, has had their own horrible dates, has had their own faces of adversity and things they've had to overcome. And so when you're sitting at that table, please treat the other person with empathy.
yeah,
Put a different set of glasses on and try to see the world through someone else's eyes. Because to me, that's one of the core pieces of connection is being able to hold that space and offer another person empathy
totally.
that that way you can connect and just
It's so much
appreciating the
deeper.
other person.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's so much deeper. But I think you hit on something that I love and I do go on about my poor clients. They get this till they go, we get it, Jen, we get it. And it's a we, not an I. And I
that's
think
right.
this is the most important thing when you're dating. And it's one of the things that women in particular, men are desperate to be a we. Men love being a we, but women are so fixed on holding on to their own identity and we have to do that, but they're very
Right.
I. You can still hold on to your own identity and be a we, In fact, that's the most
Right.
powerful way of connecting with someone, is bringing your authentic self to the table. They bring their authentic self to the table. And, you've got two bits there, and the bit that crosses over, that's the we, is the most powerful part of your connection. And you've still got each of your individual wants, needs, desires, ambition, all of those things. You hold on to that. But when you're together, that we part, and it's that sort of that little bit in the middle, is so important that you invest in that we bit. And
Yes.
so many people can't. They go, no, he's over here and I'm over here, and we do our own thing, and we stay like this. No, they've got to connect. It's like the bits of the puzzle, they've got to connect. It's the only way you'll create that foundation for a solid relationship. And the fun bit, the curious bit, is finding that bit in the middle. What is that overlap?
Yes.
That's the bit
Yes.
that
I
should
agree.
drive you, is what is that overlap that's so important for us as a we, rather than me, 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 me. It's
Mhm.
you're going to stay single forever if you've got a me, 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 or I attitude. It's really that simple.
Yes. And if you, I mean, it's called a relationship because we relate to
Yes.
one another. I mean, it's like literally in the word. It isn't, there's no I in relationship, right?
Yeah.
It's how we're relating to one another. And if you struggle with that piece,
Mm,
you are going to remain single. I mean,
yeah.
if you can't get out of your own head and understand that there are more people, in this world other than you,
Yes,
it's going to be a struggle. It's
yeah,
going to be a strugor.
it
Yeah.
really is. And Kat, you and I can talk all day, and I'm sure we're going to do more of
We
these.
can. We can.
I'm gonna have to end it there. We've run out of
Yes.
time. In fact, we've gone
Yes.
over. We've
Oh,
gone over, which I knew we would. I knew we would. Kat,
oh.
when I first, I didn't see your name written down. It's Kat Cantrell, and I'm thinking, is she related to Kim Cantrell? But obviously, it's spelled totally differently. And I was saying to everyone that comes,
Yes.
she looks a bit like, she looks a bit like the lady from Sex in the City, the Kim Cantrell. So I have to end on that. So around the conference, everyone thought, is she related? Is she, you've got that same sexy
Oh,
vibe going on.
hey. Aw. Oh my gosh, what a
And then I saw your name
compliment.
spelt out, and I thought, no, it's
Jen.
spelled a
Yeah.
completely different way. Sexy
You know what?
Samantha.
The ELL and the ILL, we are related. It's just
Yeah.
at some point in time, someone changed it. Yeah.
Yep.
So you never know. Maybe she's a distant cousin.
Well, I can see it. I can see the resemblance, and
Yeah.
I certainly recognize the sass when I met you for the first time.
There is some of that. There is some of that.
Yeah.
There is some of that for sure. Yes. Yeah. Oh
Kat,
my gosh.
oh, it's
Thank
been
you so
wonderful,
much.
darling. It's been absolutely
Yeah.
wonderful. And I can't wait for everybody to hear this. Share this with your friends. Share this with your single friends. Do them a favor and let them hear Kat's story, because it is incredibly powerful.
Mhm.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please like and share Fizz and Tell, subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much. And Kat, thank you, darling. Thank you from London.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.